Hello and welcome to Blush, the world's first wellness show that's actually entertaining. I'm Hiwa and I quit law so I can help you look and feel your best. Together, we get into food, nutrition, all the latest wellness trends, but we also laugh, get silly, drop a few F-bombs, and go on a million tangents. So if that sounds like your vibe, we're about to be best friends. Welcome back to Blush. Potentially one of the more chaotic episodes we're gonna have, although last week's episode was a straight dumpster fire, so I feel like it can't get that much worse. I am using the lav mic. So we're doing a completely different setup. I just finished filming next week's episode, Blush Kitchen, and now I'm doing this week's episode, and I figured let's just kind of break the fourth wall and I'll sit in the boucle chair in front. So this is a different set of boucle chairs that I have out here than in the studio. But I figured, what the fuck, let's just do it here in front of the food that I just made that after this, I'm going to get to go eat, although I did nibble on it a little bit. Also don't have cards today, because I just, let's do a full breaking the fourth wall kind of situation. So I have questions. I have questions. I have your guys' questions that I'm going to answer. I'm going to pull them up on my phone. There are a bunch of questions basically about podcasting, content creation, stuff like that. So I figured that this is a good way to do this episode where you get to really kind of see a bit of the behind the scenes of it all. So should we just fucking get into it? Wait, before we get into it, I have to tell you guys one kind of crazy story. So last Thursday, Ozzy and I are meant to go meet up with one of his close friends, afterward, later, 7 p.m. But we were going to meet a bit before, just him and I, whatever. And then earlier in the day, I eat lunch, and right when I finish eating, I start to get my heart starts racing and I just start getting the worst anxiety of my life. And I'm like, what is happening here? This makes no sense. What? And I start thinking of all the different things, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess me eating lunches is a relatively new thing. Maybe that's why I'm experiencing all this anxiety, whatever. And I'm trying to come up with all these potential reasons why I have such severe anxiety. Also, a moment for the straight hair. You will see it again on next week's episode on Blush Kitchen, unless I'm so paranoid that there's going to be some kind of tech issue, especially because I loved Blush Kitchen. Anyway, so I'm like, oh my God, maybe it's because, I'm anxious about eating. I'm not used to eating, multiple times a week or whatever as we talked about, or a week. I used to only eat once a week. No. Multiple times a day, as we talked about last week. Maybe it's something like that. And then I'm like, maybe I'm anxious about, I'm coming up with all these various things, but nothing really is hitting. I'm like, nah, something about this feels weird. The next day I have the same thing, but it's not as bad. The next day it's so fucking bad again, where it's my heart is racing, I'm dying, I don't know what's happening. And the one thing I kept saying, because Ozzy's well, maybe you're anxious about this, could it be this, could it be that? And he's being so sweet and so supportive. And I was like, the one thing is that it feels very physiological. And this is something I used to say about my depression last year, where I was sure, there are potentially things I could be sad about, but my depression feels very physiological. It doesn't feel like it's all these other things causing it. It feels like there's it's a physical thing that's causing it. Same thing with this anxiety. I was every time it starts with my heart racing, that's the first thing I experience. So I'm going down these crazy rabbit holes where I'm could it be that something about eating lunch is bringing out the effects of the caffeine? Could it, I'm coming up with all these crazy fucking things. And then the third day that it happened, we're on a walk and I'm having all this anxiety and I'm starting to cry, because that's the way, the anxiety is just the physiological kind of excitement, like the physiological, like my nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, it was then causing the emotional anxiety, which was then causing like me just getting emotional too and like crying and all this stuff, right? So I'm literally crying, being like, I don't know what's going on, why I feel like this. Like, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be this? Could it be that? And as we're walking, all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, I think I know what it is. And Ozzy was like, what? And I was like, I think it's that the past 3 days, every time this has happened, I've had spicy food on a relatively empty stomach. And he's like, what? And I was like, no, I really think that's what it is. And it wasn't just spicy food. It was specifically pickled Calabrian chili peppers. I don't know how to pronounce that, but you know those Italian spicy peppers? That's literally what it was. Like having those on a relatively empty stomach was making my heart race, which was then physiologically giving me like the feelings of anxiety, which were then making me have the emotions of anxiety. It was the strangest thing in my life, but it was just such a good reminder of why I care so much about what I put in my body. This is why, because it fucking matters, because it fucking affects shit. And for me, it's less so about like longevity, like a lot of these wellness people who are obsessed with longevity and like wanting to live until they're like 385 years old. Like that's so amazing for you. I'm so happy for you. I can't relate. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about longevity. I care about today. I care about tomorrow and I care about next week and maybe next year. But like that's as far as I go. Like I care about my day-to-day feeling better. And when I take better care of myself, I feel better in the immediate moment. And that's where I'm at. Like I'm like a fucking teenager who's just living for today, you know? Anyway, so I just wanted to kind of share that story. Like, do not sleep on the nutritional effects of your food and how they affect you. Anyway, let's get into this Q&A. I feel like I'm gonna collapse. Okay. Question. Okay, so I have a whole question bank that I pull from, right? I have approximately 15 questions that I've been meaning to do about like how to start a podcast. How did you start a podcast? Do you have any advice for someone looking to start a podcast? Is it too saturated to start a podcast? So many questions like this. Sorry if I have tofu in my teeth. I hope I don't, but I might. Do I think it's too saturated? Do I think podcasting is saturated? Of course it is. Do I think it's too saturated? No. People said it was too saturated 5 years ago when I started my podcast. It's only more saturated now. Imagine if I hadn't started it then. People thought it was too saturated 8 years ago. It's 8 years more saturated now. Is it saturated? Yes, but it's 2025. Almost everything is saturated. Even relatively new industries, like think of AI, even that is kind of saturated. Everything is saturated. It's 2025. That's just the world we live in. God, excuse me. The world is saturated. The whole fucking planet is saturated. We're all saturated. Everything's saturated. So do I think it's saturated? Yes. Do I think that should discourage you from podcasting? No. Fuck it. Let it be saturated. Who gives a fuck? You should still do it. But I do have advice for navigating saturation. But first, let me go through this. So what I would do before any of the logistics, any of the tech, etc., and this will help with the saturation bit, is answer this question. What problem will your podcast solve? And it doesn't have to be a problem in a traditional sense, right? Like it doesn't have to, let's say like it could be a problem in a traditional sense where you, like, let's say you've suffered with a thyroid problem your whole life and you finally figured it out. Like you could make a podcast that's just addressing thyroid problems, but it doesn't have to be that type of problem. The problem could be like boredom, like your podcast is going to be entertaining. You know what I mean? Either way, though, it has to solve something for people. And I would spend a lot of time looking at that. And the thing is, once you kind of break through, I don't think like your niche matters so much anymore. But in the beginning, I would niche down. And the more niche down you are, the easier it is to break through in a saturated field. So, for example, for some podcasts, like Call Her Daddy, the problem that solved was not feeling confident in the bedroom. And this is the original iteration of Call Her Daddy. Obviously, the show has evolved a lot. I would not say the show currently solves that problem, but that's because it got so popular, it didn't fucking matter anymore. At that point, we were tuning in for Alex and her cool ass guests. But initially, when Alex and Sophia started it, that's the problem that they solved, largely for women. It was feeling insecure and lack of confidence in the bedroom. And listening to that show gave you the information such that you could feel really confident in the bedroom. Amazing. We love that. One of my favorite podcasts is called Watch What Crappens. It's a Bravo recap show. The title is a play on Watch What Happens, which is Andy Cohen's show. So the problem that I would say Watch What Crappens solves is having a community around Bravo. A lot of us sit and watch these shows alone. And what Watch What Crappens does is make it feel like you're watching it with your best friends and chatting about it with your best friends. And as someone who actually doesn't have a lot of friends who are into Bravo, I even talk about it on the show, and 99% of you guys don't watch Bravo either. And I get DMs all the time that are like, I love when you talk about Bravo, even though I don't watch any Bravo. And I'm like, oh, okay. I would imagine that could be annoying, but I appreciate that you guys are so sweet about it. Now, those of you that do watch Bravo, like, hit a girl up. Let's talk about this shit. Like, I don't really have a lot of friends who watch Bravo. And so I love listening to Watch What Crappens because I get to like have that engagement around Bravo without, having it in real life. Mel Robbins. I would say Mel Robbins' early work kind of addresses the problem of anxiety and self-doubt. Again, she's gotten so big now that her show's a little bit all over the place. Blush, in its original iteration, solved the problem of wanting good advice, primarily dating advice at the time, while also wanting to be entertained. Like it solved this problem of having to choose between educational podcasts and ones that are entertaining. I'd like to think that it continues to solve that problem, although it's less so in the dating sphere and more so in other areas. So I would really ask yourself, what problem does my show solve? And one little tip for that is the problem that you're best suited to solve is usually the problem that you used to have and you no longer do. So just kind of think about that. The other thing I would do, and this again helps when you're starting any sort of business in a very saturated field, and this actually comes from my brother who has a clean beauty manufacturing facility. And obviously the beauty space is extremely saturated, including clean beauty at this point is extremely saturated. And so when they have new brands that they start working with, they do this exercise with them, a brand positioning exercise, where basically you take like an XY graph, like remember from math class, and on the x-axis you have it could kind of be anything. And like it could, for example, be like how clean the product is. And on the y-axis, you have price. And so you pick out your top competitors and map them out on this XY axis where they live. Like, are they more clean, more expensive, more clean, less expensive, whatever, and see where there's a literal opening and position yourself there. Now, your XY axis would be different. For podcasting, it could be things like the length of the show, the frequency with which it comes out, the topic, how clean it is versus how explicit it is, how professional it is, whatever it may be. Like when we were starting Blush back in the day, I think my XY axis was something like how funny versus serious it is, and how, I don't even remember what the other one was, quite frankly. But like, I would really look at where is there an opening? Like maybe you want to start a pop culture recap. Or no. Let's say you want to start like a nutrition podcast, right? And you want to do one that's like really, really scientific. And let's say one of your axes is frequency. So you see that there are a lot of really scientific podcasts, but they come out once a week, and there are no really scientific nutrition podcasts that are daily shows. Maybe that's your opening. Whatever it is, like when you find a little bit of a gap, that's really going to help you break through in a really saturated space. So I would, before doing anything else, just spend a little bit of time really positioning your brand. Then the next thing you need are the tech. Now, I'm not going to give you advice on what tech to buy because it really just depends on your actual needs. But like, think about how you're recording this. Do you have a co-host or not? Are you going to have guests or not? What exactly is your format? Because that's going to affect. And if you do have guests, are you going to do it remote or are you going to do it in person? Because that's really going to affect your tech. If you are only going to be podcasting with one person in a room at any given time, let's say you're a solo host who's going to have remote guests, you might be fine using a USB mic. Back when my ex-co-host and I started the podcast together, we were remote from each other. So we just got 2 USB mics and then we merged the tracks in post. Once my co-host left the show and I started doing the show solo, I still used that USB mic. But then when I started having guests here and there in person, I switched my entire setup to get XLR mics and an audio interface where you could put 2 mics into one and record at the same time. And now I very recently upgraded my camera, and my camera now has an audio interface. So I don't even need a whole separate audio interface. The audio just goes directly in there, yada, yada, yada. So the tech setup is going to be really unique to you. What I would actually really recommend doing is going to a really good not like a high end, but like a really good, big, broad AV store and talking to people there about what exactly your show is going to need and how to go forward. I don't think you need to invest in the most expensive tech setup from the get-go, but one thing to keep in mind is your setup going to be expandable? Like, you don't want to buy the cheapest shit now and then keep buying more expensive shit as you go along, because in the end, you're going to spend so much more money, but you also don't need to get the most expensive stuff there. So really give it a lot of thought. With the format, I would honestly just like experiment. And this brings me to my next point. As much as I said, spend some time doing your brand positioning and all that stuff, don't get too carried away with this shit. The sooner you can start actually recording, the better it's going to be. Your first few episodes probably aren't going to be that good, and that's fine. The more you do it, the better it's going to get. Especially if you're someone who's prone to perfectionism, don't spend so much time planning and prodding that you don't actually get anywhere. That's not going to serve you. It's not going to do anything for anyone. Like, it's just the sooner you start recording, the better. The sooner you start putting shit out, the better. Don't even overthink it. Just fucking go with it. You do need, like, other little logistic things is like you need to find a host for it to create an RSS feed. I use, what I originally used was Anchor, which was then bought out by Spotify. So now it's called Spotify for Podcasters. I use that. That's why I'm able to have full video on Spotify. I like it. I think that there are other hosts that are better in certain ways. Like, for example, on certain other hosting platforms, you can pick 2 categories for your show to be in versus on Spotify for podcasters. You can just pick one. How big of a difference that makes, I don't fucking know. I think that there are like better analytics on certain other hosts. I hear that. Who cares? Is where I stand on that. And like, keep in mind, you don't want to, like, one thing I've seen people do who are, in my opinion, incredibly unprofessional, who didn't even take like 5 seconds to do research, is just like directly upload episodes to Spotify. That's not how it works. You have to pick a host. They're free, that creates an RSS feed, and then that's how your podcast gets distributed. That's the only way that you can get onto Apple and certain other platforms. It's not sufficient to just be on Spotify. Like, be on Apple and Spotify is what I'm going to say, because like 99% of your listeners are there. If you're not on other platforms, I don't think that matters as much, but you do want to be on Apple and on Spotify. For Apple, you want to create a trailer first and submit it at least 2 weeks before you want to drop your first episode. It takes a little bit for Apple to approve a show. It probably won't take 2 weeks, but they tell you to do it 2 weeks ahead of time just in case. So that's just something to keep in mind. Other like little things you need, these are like details, you'll do them. I'm not concerned. Like, pick cover art, pick a name, pick a logo, colors, etc. I wouldn't get to like, you'll pick it, you'll do it. Like, that's the fun stuff. But the biggest thing I'm going to say for podcasting, actually 2 things. Number 1, by the way, as far as tech, you need mics and like whatever your mic setup is going to be, like maybe an audio interface, etc. I would use a camera, which brings me to one of the 2 things I was going to say: do video. Hold on one second though. You also like need lights if you're going to do video, and then you need earphones for editing. And editing isn't that hard. I wouldn't worry about it too much, and I also wouldn't over edit. I would let it be as natural as possible. That those shows tend to do better. Audiences tend to like it better. Okay, so the 2 things I was going to say. Number 1, I would do video. Even if you don't put the full video anywhere, you will use the video to cut clips and put it on social media, which is how people are going to find your show and start listening to it. So number 1, I would definitely do video. Number 2, and this is the single most important thing you will hear about podcasting: be consistent. I don't care how frequently the show comes out, but be really fucking consistent, especially in the beginning. Have I taken weeks off here and there now? Yes, but 5 years in, I've earned the right to do that. In my first 3 years, other than when I was doing it with my co-host, which was not under my control, and I'm going to bite my tongue on what I was about to say, but I think you guys might be able to fill in the sentence. Once the show was fully under my control, I did not miss an episode for like 3 years. Rain, shine, my dog being in the hospital, no matter what was going on, an episode came out every fucking week. Even when I recorded with people and it was trash and I had to re-record, be consistent. It matters so much in the beginning. If you take nothing else from this, take this, be consistent. Even if you want to shift gears within that. I have seen so many people start podcasting, they put out a few episodes, and then it's like, oh, this just isn't aligned with me anymore. I'm going to figure it out and come out with a new. No. If you're going to do that, just don't even do it. Just don't even bother. It's like giving birth to a child and then deciding to not feed it tomorrow. It's not going to work. The kid's going to fucking die, okay? Don't have a baby if you're not going to commit to feeding it every time the baby needs to be fed, okay? The show needs to be fed. The audience needs to be fed. Otherwise, they will die. Okay. You can tell I'm hangry. Okay. Here's a non-content creation question. Hi, I'm gaining weight on a raw food diet. Does that mean it doesn't work for me anymore? So I do want to just point out the wording of this question. Does that mean it doesn't work for me anymore? Well, what do you mean by work for you? Like, do you mean you were losing, like, was the point of you going on a raw food diet to lose weight? If so, then, well, yeah, it means it doesn't mean it's not working for you anymore. I think this is interesting wording, and I'd love to know more about what your intentions were with doing this. But here's the thing. A raw food diet can be a really, really, really good way to get in micronutrients, specifically fiber and enzymes. Enzymes especially, because enzymes die in the cooking process. It's probably the best way to get a lot of enzymes, and enzymes matter a lot. And also, like, a lot of fiber actually breaks down in the cooking process. So it's a great way to get like more intense fiber. It's also like a great low AGE, which is advanced glycation end products or something like that. It's that acronym is AGEs though, because they're kind of what makes you age. So really clever acronym there. So like it's you get like no AGEs via eating raw food, yada, yada, yada. It is great for things like that. However, it's exceptionally difficult, if not impossible, to get a meaningful amount of protein. So here's my guess as to what happened. In the beginning, it was working really well for you because like you're enjoying all this fresh raw fruit and eating a lot of really juicy things, a lot of really high volume things. You're getting full really fast. You have the excitement of the newness. Everything's going great. You feel so healthy, vibrant, like goddess of the earth, like Eden garden, whatever vibes. And then your body starts needing protein. And so you start reaching for nuts and seeds, which are kind of one of the only ways to get a bit of protein on a raw food diet. But the thing is, those don't have that much protein and they are very calorically dense. And so you start just eating these other things because your body not just needs protein, but it needs more fuel than you can easily get when you're just eating the really juicy fruits, right? So you start eating those and then you start overeating and you start gaining weight. My advice, don't be raw vegan. Honestly, like it's so restrictive. It's gonna be near impossible to not have a rebound binge. Like people who've been raw vegan for years, I don't know how they don't go on crazy binging phases. But you can still be largely raw and supplement with some cooked legumes, some cooked grains, some tofu, even if you're not like ethically vegan for any reason, some animal protein. Obviously, like I wouldn't do that, but like you can. Either way, I think you need to supplement with some more nourishing, less like more calorie dense foods. So you don't have to eat such a large volume of food in order to be satisfied, and just be satisfied quicker and actually give your body what it needs. Like if you keep denying your body what it actually truly, truly needs, like you're going to start overeating and you're going to start gaining weight. That's my 2 cents on that. Okay, let's go back to this question. What are the best and worst things about being an influencer? Okay, so I want to start addressing this question by saying thank you so much for referring to me as an influencer. I one time had someone comment on one of my things and was like, I hate it when quote unquote influencers, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why is it in quotes? Like that just feels mean. No, so thank you for that. And obviously I'm not like, I'm still working my way up there. I would say the best are that you have an outlet for your ideas, connecting with people. Like nothing makes me happier than reading your guys' DMs, especially when something really resonates with you. And then the flexibility and like being able to do something that you're so fucking passionate about. Like I'm sitting here, it is almost 6 p.m. I've been working all day. I was filming for hours before this. It was like absolute chaos filming Blush Kitchen. Now I'm doing my second podcast of the day. Like I'm drained. Like I can barely form a sentence, but I'm so alive. And I barely had like 2 bites of food. Like I'm so fucking hungry. I'm barely alive, but I'm so invigorated and happy because I fucking love this shit and I get to do it, and how fucking cool is that? Like, just to be that passionate. And then also the flexibility. It's like, I can go to a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day without having to run it by 12 people and it being this whole big thing. Like, I hated having an office job. I hated being in an office 9 to 5. Like, I hated not being able to go to the grocery store during non-peak grocery store hours so I can like do my grocery shopping so much faster than if you go at 6 p.m. and it's so crowded and everyone's there, yada, yada, yada. So stuff like that, I would say, is the best. Now, as far as what's the worst, my answer changes depending on what's going on. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said like the negative comments are the worst. Whereas right now, I'm like not really triggered by that. Right now, one thing that's really hard is boundaries. Like it's hard to know, like for example, when I first started doing food content creation, like I love hosting and entertaining and having people over for dinner. And every time I'd have people over for dinner, I'd use it as an excuse to get more content. But then it's like, it starts bleeding into what's supposed to be my fun time. It's like not knowing like where to draw the line, especially because like when you are a content creator, basically a lot of your job is your actual life. And it becomes really, really hard to draw the line between your actual life and your job. And then also like not having work hours, things like that. Like I work all the time. Like I even remember a couple months ago saying to my mom, like, maybe this summer I should give myself summer Fridays and actually take a day off because I haven't intentionally taken a day off in like 5-6 years. Like I've unintentionally taken them off when I've gotten sick and too run down, but I've never intentionally given myself a day off. And I completely forgot about that conversation. I still haven't done it. Like it's near impossible to have boundaries. The way people talk to you sometimes is crazy. Lately, I'm not so triggered by that, but there are times, like I remember the first time I went viral on TikTok, holy shit, the negative comments, like I was so dysregulated, like I was losing my mind. Now, it's all whatever, you know? But there are times where it'll come back. Another thing I will say is you do a lot of free work. Like no other job do you do this much without any money. But then, you know, the payoff is once you hit it really, really big, you start making like astronomical amounts of money for what seems like very little work, but it's a lot to get there. And like, there's no other job where you would do this much free labor and also be spoken to the way you sometimes are. And the last thing I will say is like the cringe and the embarrassment. Like the people who make it are the people who are able to push past the cringiness of it. And you always have this idea in your head, like, oh, it'll be better when I hit this number. Like I remember when I was first starting to post on Instagram before I even had 1,000 followers, I was like, once I hit 1,000 followers, like it won't feel so cringy because like I'll have like a little bit of like proof of concept and like whatever backing, social backing, yada, yada. Right now, it just feels so cringy and so embarrassing because I'm obviously trying and like it's so losery, whatever. But the thing is like right now I'm like, oh, once I hit 100K on a specific platform, it'll feel better. But I don't think it ever does. Like, I don't think like any number ever makes you feel secure about yourself. It just doesn't. You just kind of have to push past it, you know? Okay, so I think that's that on that. You guys, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I kind of just want to do one more question and then wrap it up. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just like, I'm going to collapse. Okay. How important do you think it is to pick a niche as a content creator and how do you pick one? Okay. Do I think you have to pick one? No, but it will make it a lot easier to break through if you do. Once you break through, once you're known, then it doesn't really matter. Think about what I was saying about Alex Cooper, right? If they just started a podcast talking about like anything and everything, I don't think it would have taken off as quickly. But because they had such a specific, clear niche, and there really wasn't a lot of that, like there were a lot of podcasts, but there weren't a lot of podcasts by females talking about sex and doing it in a funny way, going back to the XY axis. There were other sex advice by women podcasts, but they weren't funny. They were really serious and like very like woke and very not that there's I don't say woke in a derogatory kind of way, but like very almost like clinical and progressive and stuff. And they came along and they're just like joking and being silly, but also talking about sex. So like they had a very clear niche and an opening in the market. And then once the show got big, now there is no niche for Call Her Daddy, but it's fine because it's already big. So I do think that it makes it a lot easier to break through, especially on TikTok, because TikTok really likes to like TikTok's algorithm really likes to put you in a specific category. So if you make videos about 5 different things, it's going to have a hard time knowing which audience to show that content to. And like, for example, if you start creating content on one specific topic and then you make content on a different topic, it's going to show that content to the people who are watching it for the other topic, and they're not going to engage with this topic. So it does really, really, really help until you break through, and then it doesn't really matter anymore. And as far as how to pick a niche, I said this in the last question about podcasting, but really think about what is a problem you once had that you don't have anymore. You are best positioned to help the person that you once were. So when I started Blush, I actually was solving a problem that I had at the time, which was like I was single and I wanted to be in a relationship. But then like over time when I, started dating Ozzy and stuff, like I started to solve the problem of getting over anxious attachment. And then I started to solve the problem of getting over gut health. Like my niche has changed, but there's always kind of been a niche, you know what I mean? And now who the fuck knows what's going on anymore? Now I might just be dying. But yeah, I do think it helps. And I would spend a little bit of time, but I wouldn't let that take away from creating. The more you can just be creating and getting reps, the better. There was this study where I think they took I think it was students in a pottery class or something to that effect. And they split them into 2 groups. And basically group 1 had to, I think it was a pottery. Let's just pretend it was a pottery class because I don't remember. Group 1 had to make a pot. Let's say, I don't know what one made, a vase every single day. Group 2 had to make just 1 vase for the whole semester. And you would think that the group 2, who had all semester to make the perfect vase, you would think the best vases came out of group 2, but no. Group 2 had dog shit vases, whereas group 1, all of the best vases came out of group 1 because they were iterating and improving on what they did over and over and over again. You guys know I went to law school. Hands down, the hardest thing about law school is that your entire grade for a class comes down to 1 final exam, and that is it. So you have no opportunity to know what you're doing wrong, what you're understanding wrong. Like I remember in torts, I got a B and I was devastated. And I went to talk to the professor to go over my exam and stuff. And I realized that there was one specific tort that I'd completely misunderstood all semester, but there was no way of me knowing that because there was no way of me, there were no tests, there was nothing. So I had no idea that I'd completely misunderstood the elements of this one tort until it was too late. Fuck law school. I guess that's the point of this podcast. Fuck law school. No, okay. I am going to wrap it up now. I know it's a shorter episode, but I hope there was some value in here for you guys. And I can't wait for you guys to watch Blush Kitchen next week. We're going to do a short foods that make you blush segment, which is a segment where I talk about foods that have nutrients that support what we talked about. So I guess I'll do for today, since we're talking about content creation, I'll talk about foods that really pop off on camera. Number one, I think matcha has just like a beautiful aesthetic on camera, especially the way I do those cloud matchas where there is like the foam sitting on top. I think those end up looking really, really stunning. Spoiler alert, I made like the yummiest one I've ever had on next week's Blush Kitchen. However, the aesthetics didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but it doesn't matter. It's still delicious. Number two, purple cabbage. Purple cabbage always pops, especially if you have it sit in vinegar for a while so that it becomes really uniform. Looks so pretty. Number three, avocados. Like there is something about the way avocados look on camera. Like any dish that you add avocado to, provided the avocado itself isn't brown and stuff, it's always going to look so fucking good. Number four, this is a good one. Okay, if you take berries and put them in the freezer, but you can't start with already frozen berries. You have to start with fresh berries, put them in the freezer, wait till they're fully frozen, and then you take them out of the freezer. As they defrost, they get frosty on the outside. And with berries like blackberries and raspberries and stuff, it'll create this very cool aesthetic where they're like silver, but then you see the like ridges of where the pockets of the berries are. It's a very cool look. And number five is like any sort of crumble. So like cracked pepper, salt, crushed nuts, sesame seeds, gochugaru flakes, anything flaked on like that adds a layer of texture and just looks really fucking cool on the dish. So yeah, that's a very different foods that make you blush, but what a fun one, right? Okay, and that brings us to the gratitude segment that we do at the end of the show. So I'm grateful that I got these episodes done today because I'm leaving in a couple of days to go to DC for almost a week. I'm going down for my niece's 4th birthday, but I'm staying a little bit of extra so I can see the family friend who has cancer who I've talked about, and yeah, just like spend a bit more time with my loved ones down there. So yeah, I'm grateful I got all this done today, even though I feel like I could explode right now. I am grateful that last week's episode was really well received. I've gotten so many DMs from people who were able to relate and really saw where I was coming from, and I really, really appreciate that. And I am grateful for this stunning bowl that I made on next week's Blush Kitchen. We're really, playing with space and time today. It's like an episode of Westworld. But I'm so grateful that I get to go sit and eat this in a second because your girl's so hungry. I'm so hungry. And this week and every week, I'm so grateful for you guys. I hope you took something from this episode. And if you have more questions about like content creation and podcasting, like truly go for it. Go for it. Like fuck it being saturated. Like I said, everything is saturated. College is saturated. Like everything is saturated. Fucking the Trader Joe's grocery line is saturated. Everything is saturated. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. All right. I love you guys so much. We will talk next week. All right. Seriously, love you guys. I hope you have a good day. And I can't wait for you guys to watch Blush Kitchen. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm like not even making sense anymore. Bye.
If you loved that episode as much as I hope you did, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And check out some past episodes while you wait for the new one to drop next week. And until next week, make sure to stay cunty out there.